This is Steve Prefontaine, the most celebrated, underaccomplished American track athlete in history. Prefontaine was born to German immigrant parents in 1951 in Coos Bay, Oregon. Growing up, Steve Prefontaine was a multi-sport athlete participating in football and basketball, but due to his embarrassingly small stature, he received little to no playing time in either sport. When he got to high school, Pre shifted his focus to cross country. He didn't become good until his junior year, where he won every single race he entered. His senior year, he went undefeated again, where he attracted much attention from every college. In 1969, he made his decision to attend the University of Oregon under Coach Bill Bowerman. He immediately excelled under Bowerman, who was credited with creating one of the country's premier collegiate running programs. Prefontaine won 7 NCAA titles in cross country and track. He quickly earned a devoted fan base in Eugene and beyond, and his supporters wore shirts to his meets that said "Go Pre" during and after his collegiate years. After so many record-breaking performances, his long-term goal was to compete in the 1972 Olympics in Munich, Germany. After making the team and arriving in Germany, the Olympic Games were disturbed by Arab terrorists.
The Games of the 20th Olympiad, Munich, Germany. These were supposed to be the happy games, but the serenity was shattered and the Olympic Games were changed forever by Arab terrorists.
There are men with guns beginning to train those guns on the rooms where the two heads were sticking out a moment ago of the Arab guerrilla lookouts. This is happening now, if you can possibly believe that, at the Games of the 20th Olympiad.
The Olympic Games came to a stunning halt. With each passing hour, the tension built as the world watched in horror. The worst of all possible scenarios played itself out.
It now said that there were 11 hostages. 2 were killed in their rooms yesterday morning. 9 were killed at the airport.
After not giving in to the terrorist commands, all the competitors decided to race. Despite being one of the youngest in the field, Pre was heavily favored to win this race. He was known for his gutsy front running style, rather than being a sit and kick kind of person. He approached this race with the same tactic, and he died over the last 200 meters. He held on to the bronze medal position until the final 5 meters of the race, which resulted in him getting 4th place in this Olympics. Pre and all the Americans were devastated. He ran with so much heart but failed miserably. 1972 did not go his way, but he was considered to be the favorite already for the 1976 Games in Montreal. Post-Olympics, he had changed drastically. His appearance changed and his attitude changed. He was more hungry than ever. He went back to Oregon for his final year, where he finished undefeated and unemployed. He knew it would be impossible to train at a world-class level and earn a living. He was one of the world's best runners, but he was living in a trailer and surviving off food stamps. At this time, the AAU was the governing body of United States track. Pre stayed in trouble with them because he used to angrily advocate for the rights of athletes. He was a no-nonsense kind of guy. When he saw a problem with American athletics, he brought it to the attention of the public. During his struggles with the AAU, Steve joined back forces with his former coach and innovator, Bill Bowerman. Bill developed new track surfaces as well as built running shoes and spikes. Bowerman, as well as former Oregon runner Phil Knight, joined alliances and formed a shoe company named Nike. They mass-produced a design made for Steve Prefontaine. Steve joined them as an employee in 1973. In 1974, he became the first ever athlete to be signed to Nike. Continuing to overstep the boundaries of the AAU, Steve began to organize his own track meets. This showed him the business side of track and field. He remained in top form despite having to organize the meets and compete in them. His last meet he hosted of his summer tour was a success. He had won a 5K, nearly missing his own American record. He celebrated the success of the meet that night at a party with family and friends. And unfortunately, that was the last time anyone had ever seen Steve alive again. The 24-year-old Steve Prefontaine lost control of his car, crashed into a concrete wall and flipped his car. He was dead before the ambulance arrived. A week later, family and friends filled the stadium in Coos Bay, where Steve's athletic career began, to say their final goodbyes to the running trailblazer. At the time of his death, he was the greatest distance runner America had ever seen. He had all the American records from the 2,000 all the way up to the 10,000. He didn't have any Olympic medals, but he was a true pioneer. He stood against the track governing body when he felt they were mistreating the athletes, something that we don't see today. He was an instrumental factor in the creation of Nike, with the first shoe being created just for him. He lived in poverty and never made excuses for his living condition. He fought for the track athletes to be paid by the United States governing body. When he felt track meets were poorly and improperly ran, he created and started hosting his own meets. Before the creation of this video, I thought Steve Prefontaine was a road, poor-performing, under-accomplished drunk driver who irresponsibly died and is only celebrated because he's from Oregon. I am now aware of his instrumental impact on the entire sport then and now.
The story of an athlete dying young has been a compelling part of literature and life for centuries. In the tragic saga of Steve Prefontaine, we are reminded once again, sadly, why such a fate touches us all so deeply. Field on the campus of the University of Oregon in Eugene. As you can see, a sellout crowd has gathered for the 1995 Prefontaine Classic. I've been joined by Craig Masback, who, among his other accomplishments, broke the last of Steve Prefontaine's American records. That was in the 2,000-meter run.
I always wondered how I'd be received here in Eugene. I think all is forgiven, but not forgotten when it comes to Prefontaine, whose athletic legacy still burns brightly. The athletes of today take what Prefontaine showed them in going to the front, pushing the pace, running the race that's the best for them. But it's not only an athletic legacy, it's a political legacy. Challenge the system, make it change, make the Olympic system and the U.S. track system work better. That was Prefontaine's message. The athletes have picked that up. And Vern, there's a spiritual legacy. The athletes of today following the Prefontaine model, going to hospitals, working with kids, working to improve the life of prisoners to try to have them change their ways. That's something Prefontaine did. Athletes today are doing it as well.
You know, we gather here in this mecca of track and field in the United States, a wonderful festive atmosphere, terrific weather. One of the highlights today will be the 2-mile run, which is one of his favorites.
Prefontaine held the American record for 2 miles. Two great American runners, young runners, have picked up that legacy. They've predicted an American record today. They'd have to run under 8 minutes and 12 seconds. Bob Kennedy, a 5,000-meter runner. Todd Williams, a 10,000-meter runner. I think they have a shot at it.